Welcome to our brief presentation, How to Streamline Supplier Qualification and Strengthen Your Supply Chain. We're often asked, why streamline your supply chain? Well, as supply chains today stretch around the world, we all know they are more interconnected and more complex. We're also aware that there's increased demand for many resources. These pressures mean that errors will bring a much higher cost in both dollars and reputation to our organization. One way we can mitigate these errors is effective supplier selection and qualification. We suggest, to get started, you focus on 5 factors: product quality, the price, delivery performance, responsiveness of your supplier, how effectively they use their own improvement management systems. We also like to remind you that you should requalify, don't just select. Our example customer, Acme, has a formal selection and qualification process for their suppliers. We're going to take a look at a few of their key reports: the supplier delivery report, the supplier performance status report, and we'll take a quick look at some real-time performance analysis data.
To begin the process of supplier selection, Acme starts by providing you suppliers with the Supplier Performance Scorecard report. This one is for resin suppliers specifically. They let the supplier know that there is an internal procedure for validating and qualifying vendors. They also want to remind the vendor that after the first year, the vendor must remain qualified with a score of B- or better in order to maintain program acceptance. What kind of factors is Acme tracking on their vendor performance? Let's take a look at a few. They want to know what the percent of total quantity received that was acceptable was over the annual period. How many total receipts or what volume of total receipts were received annually from the vendor. They're also going to provide performance grades for various different characteristics, such as how responsive the vendor is. We can take a look at how all of those actions are completed using results entry. In order to manage the supplier qualification process, Acme depends on a number of reports. One of them is the supplier delivery report. This report is generated and delivered to the purchasing department every time materials are received from qualified vendors. In the delivery report, we will identify what items were received, the vendor who shipped the product, and of course it's critical to understand what the grade was for this particular shipment. We can see that the delivery was on time, and if we scroll further down the page, we'll actually be able to see that 100% of the material received was deemed to have met our quality requirements. The data in this tool is saved to the database and is then available for the purchasing agents to use when evaluating the vendor. One of the forms that we can use to record the data into our quality system is the all-in-one results entry form. We've just completed a results document for the item number AB resin that was received on receiver 1172. Unfortunately, when we applied our results to the system, we identified that the yellowness value of our product didn't meet the criteria that's been established, and so that particular step on the process has failed. We're going to want to create our delivery status report, also for AB resin, and it's very easy. The duplicate key will allow us to duplicate the item number, the receiver, and then we'll change the inspection to the receiving inspection that will become our delivery status report. Once our duplicate header document is created, we can then begin to complete the testing data required for the receiving status report. The first question we're asked is whether or not the receipt was actually on time. This is easy because the material received exactly when it was expected. On-time day simply means did it show up on the day it was expected, earlier or later. Our status is that the receipt is on time, and we were able to inspect it during the same shift that it was received. Unfortunately, we have a 0 pass rate for the quantity and a 0% acceptable rate because our product didn't meet the criteria during the earlier testing process. As the purchasing agent responsible for completing a vendor qualification process, I'm going to want to be able to look at the performance of my vendor over a period of time. One of the ways that I can do that is in my results entry export form. In this form, I can see all of the data that I've created during my testing processes. Let's take a look at performance for the AB resin product number. As the purchasing agent, I know that my test code that tells me whether or not vendors are delivering on time is my BB on time test code. So I'm going to go ahead and locate that test code so I can evaluate who my best vendors are for the AB resin. From this list, I can see that I have quite a number of on-time shipments, and in a few places the shipments were not on time. It turns out that both of my vendors failed to deliver on time. However, it's very clear that I have a greater frequency of deliveries from the vendor AAA than I do from the vendor AABB. I know that another test that gives me a good view into my supplier quality is the test that tells me what quantity of material was deemed acceptable upon receipt. In this case, I have 100% or a high 90 in most every measure. But I do see there's one shipment here where we rejected 100% of the product shipped. If I wanted to combine data from both of these measures to do a more thorough analysis, I'd go ahead and use my dashboard tool. But let's take a look at what the status report is going to look like after I've completed all of this analysis. We can take a look at that in the all-in-one results entry form. We use the all-in-one results entry form to collect the information with regard to supplier performance. Here in the lower grid, we can see that we're being asked what the supplier name is and how many years has a supplier been in continuous evaluation with us. We also want to know how many items do they supply and how many total receipts did we have with them in the past year. Of those total receipts, how many of them were on time? And on a gross level, what percentage of the material they shipped us did we consider acceptable? The next group of items are grades that we apply to their performance. For product quality, we want to know what their overall product quality is, and we have an alphabetical scale available to select from. We've given them a B+ for responsiveness, an A for their timeliness, and overall they're going to receive an A- score. All of this data can then be formally reported to them in the Reports tab. We're going to run the Supplier Performance Report so that we can tell our vendor AAA what their annual supplier performance status looks like. In that report, we provide a key so that they can understand the grading mechanisms. We also let them know who completed the evaluation on our team, and we let them know when they're going to be evaluated again. The items we report on are an explanation of how many years they've completed the evaluation successfully. How many items do they supply to us? What were their total receipts annually? And what did we consider the on-time receipts to be? In today's presentation, we took a look at 3 reports that can help us improve our supply chain: a supplier qualification specification, a supplier delivery report, and a supplier performance status report that can be used annually to help us monitor our qualified vendors. We also saw how we could access the data recorded during our inspection results entry processes to help us make effective supply chain decisions through examination of real-time performance data. We hope you found the presentation of value today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for your time and attention.